Basically, I am co-chair of our TFA Pride Employee Resource Group at TFA. And one of the things, we started TFA Pride about 4 years ago, and we really started as a staff resource group, thinking about how are we connecting people around the country, LGBT people around the country, helping people feel less isolated, getting community. And as we started talking, the more we got together, we realized you can't really talk about Teach for America staff without starting to talk about teachers. And once you start to talk about teachers and start to talk about, we have so many people who are our program staff and trained teachers, we need to start dealing with resources. We need people to help us get resources into the hands of our teachers. And then you realize really quickly, you can't talk about teachers without talking about kids. And so it's kind of this evolution of, we need to do this stuff for LGBTQ students. Like, we really need, as Teach for America, to come out, so to speak, and say, not only are we, radically in support of safe classrooms, not only are we really committed to getting resources to support our students and to support our teachers who have LGBTQ students, and also it's really about the other students in the class as well, as you all know. So we decided, okay, we have this commitment now, how are we gonna enact this? And so this is where we partnered with Listen and Trevor, and we created this Safe Classrooms campaign. And the whole idea was, how do we get these resources to our kids, to our classrooms, to our teachers, and at the same time, really, as Teach for America, make a public statement that this is something that we care about, and that equality means equality. As an organization that is fighting for equality, we can't leave out this huge number of our kids. So that was kind of the genesis, and Jared was part of our original Safe Classrooms group. Just a bunch of us got together and started meeting weekly, and the genesis was this campaign. And one other thing I want to say, we're just so thrilled. I want to introduce Timon, who is our first ever LGBTQ, what is it, Managing Director, meaning that this is a real initiative now. And for those of us who've been doing this work kind of ad hoc for 4 years, I cannot even tell you how happy we are. So just a big welcome to you. And how do you like to enjoy the session, Jared? It was really good dance here.
Thank you, Lauren. So that's a little bit about Teach for America and how that kind of comes into this. But I'm going to talk a little bit about myself so that you kind of know where I'm starting from and where I came into this work. So this is me as a freshman in high school in Cleveland, Ohio. I went to an inner city public school after I was kicked out of the first school that I went to, a private Jesuit school, when I came out as gay. So I got kicked out of high school 4 months in, and ended up going to an inner city public school in Cleveland, Ohio. I wrote about it in, as many of you do, your exposure to the achievement gap when you apply for Teach for America. So I wrote about sort of this experience of seeing both sides of the achievement gap, going to a private school and then going to this school. We ended up starting the first gay-straight alliance in the city of Cleveland, in a Cleveland public school. It was not without trouble. It was not without legal battles and things like that. And we ended up going on and winning some awards for that. So we won Gay Straight Alliance of the Year, and there was all this amazing stuff that kind of happened. And then I went to New Orleans and I taught some amazing kids. So I was a Greater New Orleans corps member. Anybody in here in Greater New Orleans? No, that's enough. Okay.
That's LA.
Okay, that's LA. So I taught some amazing students, and it was so weird to be on the other side of that movement of safe classrooms. And I experimented and learned a lot, but I had been involved with GLSEN. This is my 15th year, and for many of you who don't know GLSEN, it stands for the Gay, Lesbian, Straight Education Network. I'll talk a little bit about sort of some of our programs and things that we do, but I want to relate to you a really personal story about how I'm really invested in this work now. So back in September, I was visiting my family in Cleveland. I was walking to a gay bar to visit with some friends. I hadn't been back to Cleveland for years. And I was walking into the bar and was attacked by 20 young people. I lost the hearing in my right ear for several months. This is a picture of me the day after. And started this really intense grounding in the work and why I was doing this work and why was I so involved in safe classrooms. Throughout the process, some of the kids have kind of come forward. The legal process is long and tedious and will probably go on for years. Ended up finding out that half of the kids, several of them, were students that went to the same high school I graduated from. So it just goes to show that there's no one silver bullet. We started a Gay Straight Alliance. That Gay Straight Alliance still existed. There are many things that you can do, but this work is hard, this work is long, and this work has been going on for a long time before us, and it will continue to go on. My hope in kind of being here is that you'll learn a couple practical strategies and some really real things that you can take back to your own classrooms, your own communities, your own schools. So my work with GLSEN, as I stated, started 15 years ago. GLSEN is the Gay, Lesbian, Straight Education Network. We have the same birthday as Teach for America, so we will be turning 25 years old this next year. And we have been doing some amazing work in K-12 schools. We do not focus on college. We don't focus on a lot of issues. So I want you to understand a little bit about what GLSEN does. So hopefully this video will play, and you'll be able to learn a little bit about what we did in our first 20 years. And we'll hope.
It's become a matter of equality and safety. GLSEN estimates that 4 out of 5 gay students experience harassment in school.
Today is the National Day of Silence.
Organized by GLSEN, the Gay, Lesbian, Straight Education Network. When Kevin and I started GLSEN 20 years ago, our mission was to support the students in their classrooms.
I'd be damned if I would be yet another closet teacher who would participate in teaching gay kids to hate themselves.
And to support the teachers that needed to support the students.
I think it's really important that teachers recognize that they have to come out and create a safe space for students.
Gay Straight Alliances are popping up all over the world.
We must learn to think and act in new ways.
Contrary to normal belief, we're normal teenagers.
GLSEN has tracked the prevalence and impact of anti-LGBT behavior bias in schools.
Here's an interesting statistic. 86% of these teens say they are harassed on a daily basis.
Tens of thousands of students will make a loud and important statement about respect.
To raise awareness about homophobia and the bullying of gay and lesbian students.
Being that voice was life-changing.
This week is the first ever No Name Calling Week.
That name calling.
Our agenda is to ensure that schools are places where students learn to articulate and defend their points of view.
Don't say that something is gay when you mean that something is dumb or stupid. It's insulting.
We saw an incredible amount of press in a very short period of time.
Please welcome GLSEN Executive Director, Dr. Eliza Byer.
We are facing a deadly bullying crisis in our schools. There is huge momentum, a lot of goodwill, and a tragic sense of urgency. This is a huge fight.
GLSEN is an organization that makes sure every student has the opportunity to succeed in school and to find out what they want to do with their life.
And that means building true respect for difference.
When we founded GLSEN, there was no way we could have known that it was going to become what it is today.
Kevin will become the new Assistant Deputy Secretary of Education.
GLSEN's work will always be important. It is one of the reasons why so many people have been able to live open and honest lives regardless of their sexual orientation or gender identity. So it's vital that GLSEN sticks around and continues to realize its mission.
I felt like that was really important for you all to kind of get that bearing of what GLSEN is and the programs that we offer. We're gonna hopefully speed through some really actionable, simple things for you to understand sort of the problem and some of the solutions, and then allow some time for question and answer. I have a lot of experience working in schools, not just in New Orleans, but I've been doing this work, like I said, for 15 years. So chances are likely that I might have a resource or something that we can kind of collectively problem solve together. So, what every educator needs to know, I'm going to start off with the problems. You need to know the problem so you can figure out how to solve it. So the first problem that GLSEN has identified through our research is that school climates are hostile. How many of you can agree with this statement? They are ever more hostile for LGBTQ students. So if you look at this, and I'm not going to bore you with charts and graphs because many of you live these experiences, and so you understand some of the data. But if you look, right, hearing bias-based remarks, gay used in a negative way, all the way over to sexist and racist marks, gender expression and identity, and then other homophobic remarks such as fag, dyke. That navy blue is so much larger for gay used in a negative way, and then also for sexist remarks and other homophobic remarks. Those are huge chunks. And so when GLSEN, when we talk about creating safe schools, we talk about LGBTQ, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, or questioning issues. But we also understand that the things that we give, the tools that we have an equally strong impact on these other areas. Sexism, racism, and so we realize that this is a collective movement around solving sort of these injustices in K-12 schools. We also understand that absenteeism is an issue. LGBTQ students miss more days of school. This is a statement from the National School Climate Survey that GLSEN does every year. It says, I stopped going to school for 4 months before graduation because I couldn't handle the bullying anymore. I will not get to attend my senior prom and throw my graduation cap in the air. The young student, I believe this was from North Dakota, had talked about their experience living and going to school and how that impacted their ability to even want to go through those doors. LGBTQ students have lower educational aspirations and academic achievements. And then the fourth problem that we've kind of identified is that LGBTQ students have poor psychological well-being. So if we look at this, the relationship between depression and the severity of victimization, it's hard to quantify lower and higher victimization, so I will kind of own that as we look at this chart. It's like, who is to say that somebody was higher victimized? But the way we look at this is physical and verbal, right? So if you look at this higher victimization and look at the sort of the depression scale, and it says percentage of students demonstrated higher levels of depression. So it increases as we look at sort of the victimization scale. And then also self-esteem. Self-esteem goes down, depression goes up. So what I want to do here really quick is I identified 4 problems. So I asked each of you to have a piece of paper that you tore off of that pad. So what I want you all to do is take that piece of paper, pull out your chairs and stand up for me for 1 minute. Just take a second and stand up. I'll give you your next direction as soon as everybody has a piece of paper and they're standing up. So I'm going to ask for your trust for a minute. I'm going to ask that you close your eyes and understand that this is a safe space. Nobody's going to go through your stuff. We're not going to touch each other. This is just a very safe space. So I'm going to ask that you close your eyes, take that piece of paper. So go ahead and close your eyes. I'm going to ask that you fold your paper in half. And we're not going to ask any questions about this. Just listen to the instructions I'm going to give you. Fold your paper in half. With your eyes closed, or keeping your eyes closed. I want you to fold your paper in half again. I would like for you to tear off the bottom right corner. I would like for you to fold your paper over and tear off the bottom I'd like for you to then open up your piece of paper. Hold it above your head if you're able to do so. And I'd like for everybody to open their eyes and just quietly take a look around the room. Take a look around. Gather it in. Thanks. Go ahead and have a seat. So I'm going to make one quick assumption here before I go any further, is that you came into this room for a reason. So I can assume that our heart is in the right place, that you came here because you want to learn. There were a lot of other amazing sessions you could have chosen. You chose this one. That being said, what did people notice when they looked around the room? Everybody's paper was different, right? At the most fundamental level, when you looked around, you saw people with holes in the middle. You saw people who had chunks on every. What happened? I gave everybody the same directions, didn't I? You all had the same size paper. You all stood up. You all heard the same directions. So what happened?
Different interpretations of the instructions that you gave.
Okay. Massively different interpretations by some. What else did we notice?
People made different choices in terms of the size that they chose to rip out or which way they chose to fold it over.
Yeah, definitely. I remember the first time I gave my students a project where they had to fold something, I heard hot dog or hamburger, and I had no idea what that meant. I obviously didn't tell you hot dog or hamburger, so you were made to make some choices about that. Now, I want to ask one question about this though, and be honest. How many of you, when you opened your eyes, thought to yourself, oh crap, I did it wrong? Right? On the flip side, how many of us opened our eyes and said, yes, I did it right, and everybody else's looks like crap? Maybe not that extreme, but I think those are the two different reactions that we have, right? Is, oh my God, I don't see mine looking like that. I don't see how I'm wrong. And yet on the other side, we have people who say, I did it right. I don't know about you, what directions you got, but very, very different interpretations. So why are we doing this? Why did I spend 7 minutes that I could have spent going over some other stuff to kind of talk about this? Anybody? Maybe somebody from this table? Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, you described how it felt in high school. I mean, what you said, it feel like for a queer student, you know, everybody else got engineered right there, and you didn't. So
yes,
feeling that the young person happens.
It's feeling that it shouldn't exist, right? And so my hope is that those four problems, right? Hostile school climates, absenteeism, when we talk about lower psychological well-being and lowered educational aspirations, right? Those are the problems that come from activities like this, right? That are kind of played out in real life, not from activities. These don't cause absenteeism. These are kind of the safe manifestations of what happens in our classrooms and our schools sometimes. And so as we look forward, right, and I start to go over a couple solutions, I want to kind of create the space where you can ask questions of me. But I also want you to understand that what we're trying to do is make room for those snowflakes, right? So kind of to be very corny, we call this the snowflake activity. It's one of the activities that, as a GLSEN facilitator, we spend a 6-hour professional development workshop with educators before they can be GLSEN certified and put a safe space sticker on their door. This is one of the activities that we kind of do to kind of open up. And then they get gradually harder. But we call it the snowflake activity because we're really kind of looking forward and saying, how do we make room for all the snowflakes? So the first thing I want to own is that student clubs, commonly known as gay straight alliances, make a difference. How many of you have a gay straight alliance in your school? It's This table is representing for the GSAs over here. And so when we talk about student clubs commonly known as gay straight alliances, in some cases they're called diversity clubs. In some cases we call them gay straight alliances. They take on many different forms. In Cleveland, Ohio, we were a gay straight alliance. There were other diversity clubs. But I just want you to know, one of the things is that because of the Federal Equal Access Act, schools have to allow a gay straight alliance. It is a federal law. So if you have one non-curricular student group in your school, whether that is a student government, any other non-curricular club. So Spanish club counts as a curricular club if your school offers Spanish class. But if you have any other club beyond that and it's not related to a class that's taught at the school, they have to allow a student club commonly known as gay straight alliance to meet. There are two options that a school can take when that happens. The first option is to allow a gay straight alliance. The second option, which sometimes schools and school districts will take, is to ban all clubs. And so what some schools have done is they have said, you know what, we don't want a gay straight alliance in our school, so what we're willing to do is sacrifice the social and emotional development of all students by canceling all student groups. And that has happened. And what do you think happens in situations like that? Protests. Parents get involved and they say, well, just let the group meet. Let them have a room and they can meet. So gay straight alliances make a difference. Why do we think gay straight alliances make a difference? So we've established that you can have one. Yeah, go ahead.
They provide a support system for people who are gay and straight, who want to align with them.
Everybody, right? It's also not even about going to the club. It is the mere presence of a gay straight alliance makes a difference for students. It's the fact that one exists sometimes makes all the difference. Gay straight alliances kind of fall into three different categories. Social, right? LGBTQ students meeting other LGBTQ students or meeting allies who are supportive and can build friendships from there. There's support, right? Which is, I'm coming out and I want to learn how you came out so that I too can kind of handle that. Or I'm being bullied, how do you kind of cope with that? And then the last part is advocacy, which is kind of advocating for inclusive policies. So when we look at gay straight alliances, they kind of fall in those three different categories. And there's many, many different activities that you can use and utilize. I'll point you to some of them so that you, if you're thinking about a gay straight alliance, can have a sample letter to your administration to let them know that you would like to start a gay straight alliance. Yeah, go ahead.
Can you repeat those three?
Social. There is also support. And then the last one is advocacy. So social support and advocacy are kind of those three areas. So the second one is, as educators, one of the big parts of your job is teaching. And so, I mean, it's a pretty big part. We talk about teachers being mentors. What's it say on the name? Oh, it doesn't say it on this. There was like a mentor, a coach. I was a cheerleading coach. I never cheerleaded. So I know that teaching is a huge part of what you do, and I want you to know that inclusive curriculum makes a difference. So we always talk about the Emily styles. How many of you are familiar with this? Windows and mirrors? Okay, some of you. When we talk about curriculum should be windows and it should be mirrors. So we talk about this to say that students need to be able to see a world outside themselves, and students need to be able to see themselves. No matter the discipline, no matter the grade level. And so I want to talk a little bit about this and kind of what that would mean. How many of you in here are early childhood teachers? Okay, wonderful. Let's give them a little round. Middle school teachers? Elementary, between the middle school, ECE? High school? Okay. Anything alternative ed? Okay, great. So there is a place for curriculum in all of these disciplines. And so when I look at early childhood teachers, I look at books like And Tango Makes Three, King and King, right? You don't have to read them to the whole class. You don't have to get up there and kind of put on this demonstration, because sometimes that can be a really scary thing. And I want to own that you might not be in a safe climate. As an educator, you might be in a climate where reading that book is a form of protest and could get you reprimanded. So I want to own that. I taught in New Orleans, which many people think New Orleans is this blue dot in a red state. There are splashes of red throughout that city, and I think that some of the things that I did kind of pushed the envelope. And so I was okay with that, but I understand that not everybody is. This is our livelihood. This is how we put food on our table. This is how we pay our rent. And it's really important that we think comfortably about what we can do. So sometimes just having that book in the library means a whole lot. You don't have to get up there and read it. When I talk about this, a lot of people think, well, what about math? And everybody immediately jumps to, let's do some word problems, right? And so they think that just by putting a same-sex couple on a word problem means that you have built an inclusive curriculum, right? So Marina and Jennifer just got married and decided to move into a house. The square footage of their living room is, and all of a sudden LGBTQ students are going to feel so much more comfortable because you put a same-sex couple in a math word problem. You are a revolutionary. I'll let you know that that is wonderful, and I am not to downplay the impact of doing that, to see something like that in a word problem. But I also want to own that there are some very real things, right? There is a handout on your table that talks about calendar, right? The calendar of events. So if we look at the sheet right here, these are GLSEN events. And one of the big things that we talk about all the time is there are days of action and there are days of support. So GLSEN has days of action. Those are things like the Day of Silence, Ally Week, No Name Calling Week. Those are programs that GLSEN has invented, supports, and builds resources for. Ally Week is a week to kind of remember and support allies and thank them for the important role that they play. No Name Calling Week is mostly for early childhood, elementary, and middle school students. There's a self-expression contest. There's a lot of great things that go on. And then the Day of Silence is a day where students are silent all day to protest the silencing of LGBTQ students every day. Then we have days of support, which are indicated in the red and orange tones. Those are things like Women's History Month, Black History Month, Native American Heritage Month. And so when we talk about these, and there are many, many things that go on in your schools around these days of support, making sure that LGBTQ people from those areas are represented. So during Black History Month, it's about thanking and remembering people like Bayard Rustin, who was so influential in organizing the March on Washington. During Native American Heritage Month, it's about talking about things like two-spirit and the supportive environment that many Native American cultures have built around LGBTQ issues. And the people who have kind of paved the way so that we can be here and do the things that we do. It's about talking about Stonewall and the important role that is. So there are, on the GLSEN website, there is a toolkit called Out of the Past, which is a short movie about the importance of LGBT history. It's great for October, but there is also some other really cool games. So there is a game with cards and facts about LGBT history, all the way from way back in the day, Alexander the Great kind of stuff, all the way to modern day. One of the great activities is to give your students each of those cards and have them organize themselves in a timeline about when they think those things occurred. It's an interesting activity. It gets them to talk about so many things, and it's important to kind of see the timeline and structure of the LGBTQ movement over time. So those are just some ideas when we talk about science, right? Talking about same-sex relationships in nature. There is something for everybody, and if you want to email me afterwards, I'd be more than happy to send you some resources about your individual content area. Just a quick question. How many more minutes do I have?
Since we started late, we're going to go until 4:30. That's fine for everyone that's still sticking on schedule, which means that you still have
25 minutes. Cool. Thank you. So inclusive curriculum makes a difference. Being a supportive educator makes a difference. So when we talk about being a supportive educator, it's a lot more than just putting a sticker on your door. So I will tell you that there are some stickers on your table. They say safe space. There are some amazing posters that Safe Classrooms Initiative has designed. They are beautiful and wonderful. One of them has these handprints on them. I will tell you that we went, how long did it take us, Lauren, to create those posters? We had revision after revision and went through all these amazing things. And so there are a bunch of posters that you can download and print. And so I would encourage you to think about putting those posters up. But I also want to encourage you to think about the language you choose, the pronouns that you use, and all of those things that make you a supportive educator. So when I talk about that, and I talk about pronouns, I will tell you, I use he, him, and his. I use male identified pronouns. Why is this important to ask what pronouns people use? Is because we sometimes think that we live in a gender binary where everybody looks and aligns with the pronouns of their external appearance. But we know that there are students who maybe don't identify with pronouns. Maybe they don't want to use pronouns at all. There are also students who don't identify to those letters LGBTQ. They fall outside that. So I want to share a quick little video about one student and sort of her little story about the language that she chooses.
My name is Jimena Aparicio. I am grade 9 freshman, and I go to the Academy of Allied Health and Science. Ever since I was 7 years old, I had always known I wanted to be in the medical field. So then I found out that I could apply to a school, and they accepted the top 75 students every year. So I got accepted, and so after that I get my medical knowledge, and I go on to a medical college, and then I plan on becoming a neurosurgeon. My father is Mexican, my mother's Puerto Rican, so I just identify as Hispanic. I was born in America though, so I guess Hispanic American. I identify as gay female. I really don't, when I tell people, that I'm gay, I don't say the word, because lesbian, it evokes such a strong reaction in other people that I just don't like it. I feel that gay female is more comfortable, so I'm more comfortable telling people. I don't know anyone that's LGBT and Hispanic to look up to. I don't have that. So I don't know how to blend them together yet. And with time, I know I'll figure it out. All my gay friends, I don't have a Hispanic gay friend. They're all white, So I can't talk to them about my Hispanic issues. I can only talk to them about LGBT issues. But with my family, I can't talk to them about my LGBT issues, only my Hispanic issues, because that's what they understand, and I don't want to make them feel uncomfortable with the other part of me, so I give them what they understand. Well, freshman year, this year I came in and I decided to come out, and I needed some support. I needed to know that my school was there for me, and that if I had problems at home, I could come to school, and that would be my place where I could be me. Because, if I can't be me at home, I need somewhere where I can be me. And so there wasn't a GSA, I found out. And I found out that there was a GSA the year before, but they shut it down because people weren't as dedicated. So my friends that were freshmen decided to support me, and they joined the club, and I started the club. I became president. Some teachers, it meant a lot for me. They supported, I wanted to be silent, and they supported my decision, and they said that's fine with me. Having that support from teachers, it means a lot, because that means that they're a person you can talk to, or it shows that they're accepting of what you want to do. An adult who's there for you, because other than that, you only have your parents, and sometimes parents aren't always accepting. So teachers can be more like that figure you look up to, and when they're accepting of you, it means the world to you to know that you're okay and that they're there for you. Family is the most important thing for me. They've been there since I was young. They've always been there, and for them to accept me, or at least try to find out more about what I have to deal with, or them to be more understanding, would mean the world to me, because that means that they're there for me, and I know they love me. They just don't understand yet. Through GLSEN events, I find people, and when I talk to them, they tell me, oh, I face similar problems, but my parents eventually accepted it, and now, especially with the older LGBT people, they tell me, oh, my parents are now accepting of me, and I even have dinner with them and my partner, and it just gives me so much hope that maybe in the future I could be like that.
So, kind of in that same realm of being a supportive educator, what did you notice about that story? saw like she could identify so many different ways, right? Could have taken that word lesbian, but for that student, it felt so much more comfortable to use the terminology gay female. And so what I say about being a supportive educator is it's not just about putting a safe space on the door, it's about asking questions. It's about asking young people, what do you prefer to be? What pronouns do you prefer? What labels do you want to use? And even accepting the fact that some young people aren't using labels, right? LGBTQ, MSN, like there are so many acronyms and letters and things like that why can't a student just be a student and you could just be a supportive educator? And I think that is, at the end of the day, what being a supportive educator is about. It's about, yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, please.
So what really actually stuck out to me in this video is when she said that she did not know any Hispanic students who identified as gay, and I think a lot about that in the schools that I support, where in particularly my schools that are majority Black, and there I've watched in one school in particular 2 to 3 young gay men who may not have been out, but definitely did not identify, definitely identified with, on the spectrum on a personal level, and they were picked, placed in that category, and they were suspended all the time, were always getting in trouble, and I do not feel like they had, there was not a GSA at the school, but I have just noticed this gut-wrenching trend, and just watching this video, I saw all of her friends were white. I guess I just have a broader question too about what is the work that's being done it's particularly in inner city or rural schools where students with students of color in particular.
Yeah, it's hard, right, to find people who look and identify similar than you. I think when I think about my own experience growing up, I grew up in a city, and I still turn to the internet to find people to talk to. I will tell you there's a great resource, the Trevor Project, which is one of Teach for America's partners and one of Glisten's close friends, has an initiative called Trevor Space. Trevor Space is a lockdown private social network for LGBTQ young people. So it is a space with message boards and support centers where young people can go and find people who may identify somewhat to them and develop relationships and friendships. It is monitored by the Trevor Project, by a series of volunteers. It is one of the programs. If you're not familiar with the Trevor Project, it is a suicide prevention resource. I have the incredible honor of being a counselor for them in their New York City area. And so I am a Trevor chat counselor, so I actually chat with young people via a messaging platform who might be in crisis and might be on the verge of committing suicide. And so I am very lucky to be able to do that. That's something that is offered to all young people who might be in crisis. There is now a program called Trevor Text, where young people who might be having a bad day at school can actually log on and text a counselor who might be sitting in their living room, being able to chat with them and kind of talk to them and talk them out of this crisis mode. So Trevor Space, Trevor Chat, Trevor Text, those are all amazing resources from the Trevor Project that you can offer to your students. On the Safe Classrooms posters, the Trevor Lifeline number is actually listed, but that is just one of many programs that the Trevor Project offers. So when we talk about finding people who sound and look like us, Trevor has some programs, but there's not a lot. In New York City, we have the benefit of having the Hendrick Martin Institute and Harvey Middle School. We have LGBT schools and programs and youth groups. There may not be as many plethora of resources in your neighborhoods or communities. And I know that the Safe Classrooms Initiative is trying to get some training and resources into those communities, and so that those teachers can be role models. I just want to share, this is after my attack, one of my students sent me a Facebook message, and I just wanted to share this and kind of what this meant. Mr. Fox, though this may be quite random, I thought I should share my thoughts with you today. As you said in your video, the men who attacked you did so because they believed you were an easy target based on your sexual preferences. However, if they had viewed you as I see you, they would have seen approaching one of the strongest men I've come to know. Strong in mind, in body, and confident is the man that he is. I applaud each and every one of your limitless endeavors to make this world a better place for all who inhabit it, and I cheer you to overcome every obstacle that tries to hinder your path. This is one student who I never thought had kind of, it clicked, right? And I think we all have those. But by being a supportive educator, you may not know the benefits then, but knowing that that student, if they had an issue, if they had a thought, could come to you and you would be there for them, that's what being a supportive educator is about. And the last thing I want to cover is that one of our solutions, right, our ways to kind of make room for all the snowflakes, is that comprehensive bullying and harassment policies and laws make a difference. So this is one of GLSEN's resources. We have a sports project called Changing the Game. As I mentioned, I was a cheerleading coach, but that was only so that I could work side by side with the football coach to make sure that those students were being supportive. And so that was my avenue, was the cheerleaders went everywhere the football team went, and I was there to kind of stop homophobic remarks in their track on the bus to games, on the bus back from games, on the sidelines I was there, and I was there to kind of hear it and stop it. This is one of the climate checklists that the sports project has. I just want to, there's many questions out here. Here are some of them. Team dress codes for travel and game days are gender neutral, right? So you can go through these checklists and answer yes, no, or maybe. And so maybe getting a group of teachers together, some other core members who might be at your school, maybe a supportive educator that you know, sitting down and answering these questions together really honestly is a way to kind of open up and start to talk about this. So there are these for sports projects, for sports teams, for gym classes, and then also for schools as a whole. Do you have a policy that's supportive? And not just having a policy, but is it communicated out? It just sits in a handbook somewhere that's not really doing anybody any good. There's also a model district policy on transgender and gender non-conforming students. So it is a policy that an individual school or school district can adopt on how to support gender non-conforming and transgender identified students. And so things such as uniforms, language on forms, gender neutral language. You don't have to go tomorrow and install a gender neutral bathroom. There are some very real, simple things that you can do. So I have all of your email addresses, and I'm going to share this all out with you after today when I get some internet. And so I just want to cover a couple little things, 1 minute literally. These are things that aren't like GLSEN solutions, but things I've noticed through my time with GLSEN, and then we'll have 10 minutes for questions. So one thing I've noticed is that prom is for everyone, and that is one of GLSEN's programs, and you can log on and find some resources. We just had a situation in New York City where a trans student was not able to go to his prom because he identified as trans. They actually stopped him from going to prom. So happens all over. One other thing I've noticed is that pronouns matter. You should ask questions like, what does it mean to you? So if a student says, I think I might be gay, right? The student decides to come up to you. The first thing you want to do is thank them, right? Thank you for feeling like you can come to me. I want to ask you, what would that mean to you, being gay, right? Because I think I might be gay might be a really negative thing for that kid. So you want to ask, what would that mean to you? And then another question you might want to ask is, has your family said things that make you think they wouldn't be supportive? Or has your family said things that make you think that they might be supportive of you? And then they might launch into a story about that. And so asking these open-ended questions and allowing the student to answer these questions allows you to understand, is it a safe place for them to come out? Because you can always tell them, that's great, I'm really happy for you, then maybe you should think about telling your parents. But if it's not safe for them to do that, that's throwing them to the wolves, right? So that happens on a spectrum. It might happen little by little. It might not ever happen, and that's okay. But allowing the students to understand the implications of coming out, I think is really important, and asking them questions that help to guide them through that. I want to also recognize that it's okay not to know. I was not born with the infinite knowledge of LGBT issues in K-12 schools, nor do I know everything there is to know, and I will claim my ignorance when I have it. And I think it's okay to claim that, it's okay to ask questions, it's okay to not know. And so if someone comes to you and they're telling you things, and you don't know what to say, it's okay to say, you know what, I really appreciate you telling me. I'm gonna look into that for you. I'm gonna check this out, and then we'll come back together and try to solve this together. Give yourself some time, buy yourself some time. Don't think, oh my God, I have to answer this right now. And then don't put a safe space sticker up until you're ready. You can take them today. And you might think that you have a really safe, supportive climate, but if you're not ready to have that student come up and come out to you, then it might not be the right time for you to put that up. So that's it. I want to save some time for questions. We have about 8 to 10 minutes.
I don't know if it's a question, but just something that I'm like struggling with, and a lot of people on my campus are. We currently have at least one gay teacher on every grade level, and like we're out to each other and the staff, but we're not out to kids. And I don't know, I feel like a lot of it is just because of parents, like we don't want to bring any added issues with like end of year field trips where we have to like host kids in hotel rooms and stuff like that. But I just think about the implications of like not being out, and how much more supportive, or like even just being a role model, being a Hispanic gay teacher. Like I could have, been someone that she could have spoken to. But I don't know, like what are your thoughts on like teacher outing themselves, like when is the right time, the resources, I don't know, just.
Yeah.
Because I feel like it's really hard for a lot of teachers. Like, do I come out to my kids? How do I come out? Yeah.
So I came out to my students in a moment of crisis, right? A student had called me a fag. And it was a really deep moment that kind of cut and hurt me in a way that I don't think I really understood at that time. And in between tears, I told my students why that hurt me as somebody who identifies as gay, right? So it might be a situation in which a student says something that might be, that's so gay, you're such a fag, or it might be a LGBT inclusive lesson that you're teaching, right? And you kind of say, for me personally, and for some people, they don't make a big deal out of it. They just say, my significant other, my boyfriend, my girlfriend. And I think when we talk about that like it's normal, then it just becomes a commonplace thing. It's just normal. You just have a significant other. Yeah, you want to help them?
Yeah, it's also something I always did when I was teaching is to have a conversation with my principal or the school leader just to let them know that this was something I was thinking about. Of course, I wasn't going to walk in class and say, hi, I'm your gay English teacher. But I think in those moments where it becomes relevant or appropriate, in my situation, I was coaching varsity basketball, and two of the young men got into a shouting match with each other and called each other back. And so for me, that became a natural opportunity. It wasn't forced, it was an opportunity where I could sort of out myself in a way that was really functional, and that was to help create a safe space. So, but I think it is important for the safety of educators to gauge where your school leaders are on that issue, because there have been environments where I didn't come out because I didn't feel I would have the support of the principal.
Just like what we said with students and coming out, right? Is that you need to gauge that climate, because the last thing you need to do is not be able to pay your bills and not be in that classroom anymore, because you're not doing anybody any good then. I saw a hand over here, and then we'll hop over here.
You touched on it exactly. I was just going to say that, what are the platforms reading this, and it's like, what are the policies for us as teachers with regards to how, when, where, why, how many, we feel the need to come out, our students, our parents, our families, like, what are those policies that protect us?
Yeah. So it varies based on district. We know that ENDA, the Employment Non-Discrimination Act, which GLSEN is not in support of the most recent ENDA because it allows religious exemptions, which is not okay for us. We have known from the Hobby Lobby decision most recently that religious exemptions and religious entities can sometimes cause conflict. And so when we look at this and start to think about these policies, they really do shift and vary based off district, based on states. So it would be important for you to check in not only your local policy, but also into state policies and things like that. I also want to throw in there, you had asked a question about whether or not it was illegal to out a student. There are privacy laws that protect students, and so you actually cannot out.
No, if one student outs another student, can that student take action? Like, you actually just violated my right. I mean, I never even heard of this. I was like really shocked when I heard this, because I feel like people out each other all the time, and it's an issue. And even just telling kids that you can actually be sued for that, or like I don't know if you can, but just I didn't know that this existed.
Yeah.
So it applies for teachers outing kids, but what about kids outing other kids?
So kids outing other kids is sort of the same thing that falls in the line when it's kind of hearsay and bullying and people talking about other people. It's just like it violates certain policies based on your school or school district, but it doesn't violate privacy laws.
Okay.
But it does when it goes to a principal calling a parent saying your son or daughter or your child has identified as gay and is doing XYZ at school. Hand, and then I have 1 minute, so I'll stay after.
Well, I'm lucky. I think in my school we're pretty open and accepting of things, but a lot of times I'll have, I work with a speech and debate team, and I'll have couples, either male or female couples, and we're a small team, so I get a hotel room for overnight trips for boys and a hotel room for girls. And the big question that I've had, and I've gone to more than one principal with this issue, is what do I do? Because they've outed themselves to me. They're open with me, they're open at school, they're not open with their families.
Yep.
And this is a policy, like I don't know what other school districts do when it comes to this. I've asked principals, can we get another hotel room? But then they said we have to justify it, and then we have to contact the parents and explain why that's happening. I don't know, I mean, that's a tricky situation I've been put into several times. I don't know if anybody has any ideas.
So when we talk a little bit about sort of trans student protections, I call this up here, right? The Department of Ed issued guidelines clarifying transgender students are protected under Title IX statute. So that comes into place sometimes, right? When we start to talk about certain areas of the school environment. When it comes to sort of the hotel rooms and things, it's about ensuring student safety, right? So if it's going to be and create a safety issue, then it's sort of that's the road we'll take. There are, and again, it kind of rides that thin line about outing a student, so you can't really call and say that. But chances are likely the parents probably already are aware in some way, shape, or form, especially when it comes to gender non-conforming. Although we have students who come to school and change on the way and then go home at night and throw the clothes behind a bush somewhere and then go back home a completely different person. And so that's kind of a thin line. I would check out sort of the Department of Ed guidelines, see if there's some clarifying language in there that you might be able to use around that. This was just recent, pretty recent. So that might, I think I'm over in time.
Yeah.
So
I want to just make sure. So you are welcome to stay in the room.
I'm good to be here.
If you need to leave, feel free to do so. And this is not to stop the conversation or cut anyone off. I just want to make sure that you take care of you when you go where you need to go. And again, Jared and Lauren, thank you so much. Really just appreciate everything.
take the stuff from the tables, please. I don't want to take it home.
No, then
I'll be here, staying here. Take the